As we wake up this Monday, we all have the same question in our minds. Have the football gods turned benevolent? This is the ArsenalVision Post-Match Podcast. My name is Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. The vengeful football gods, who we have loathed and who we have cursed for years, may be turning benevolent. This is a big, big development in football, my friends, as we see Arsenal starting to get a little bit of fitness luck, the injury bug hitting some rivals, results going our way, last-minute equalizers going in other places, full-time whistles being blown when the opposition has the ball right on the edge of the box. It's all coming up Arsenal at the moment. It is not, sadly, all coming up Ruben Amorim. And I want to tell you, it's days like this where I really hate copyright laws, because I would love to play In the Arms of an Angel for you right now. That's what I would love to. Far away from here. But we can't. We can't play it due to copyright restrictions. But in your head, I want that playing as we say goodbye to Ruben Amorim. On a personal note, I had a bet with someone that Ruben Amorim would be sacked by a certain time. I said before the end of the year, 2025. I lost that bet. At Manchester United, I want to say 5 days? You couldn't do it 5 days sooner? Anyway, I do think Ruben Amorim's last press conference was a plea to get out of Manchester United. And I would just say, if you haven't watched it and you're having a bad day, you're a little bit down, you're in the dumps for any reason, it's a hell of a good watch. It is basically him sticking up two middle fingers and saying, please sack me. I want my payoff. I want to go to Ibiza and relax for a while. And he now gets to do that. I say, give it to Southgate. Give it to the waistcoat. Come on. Let's see it. Let's see Southgate at United. We'll see what happens. Rumors of Mark Gahey to City. We'll see. They suffered potentially serious injury to Joseph Guardiola. Diaz injured as well as they drew. It's a fantastic weekend. And here to discuss the fantastic weekend that was and the big game that is upcoming as we look to right some wrongs in that one is Tim. Hello, Tim.
Hello there.
And Clive. Hello, Clive.
Hello.
Guys, this is how good the weekend was. I went live to do a Schadenfreude pod at full time of the City game yesterday. And Clive Palmer joined it. That's how good the weekend was. Clive joined a live Schadenfreude stream. If you want that, it is over on the Patreon. You can use code RICE50 and get 50% off and listen to Clive do Schadenfreude. I will say it is more my thing than his thing, but he was game and I appreciate it. Clive, thank you for doing that with me.
I only did it to protect everybody. I can't have you running wild, unmonitored. You know what I mean? So I need to come on there and just make sure there's not too many jinxes out there. I can't be stopped. No, I can be limited, but I can't be stopped. Guys, I think rather than the TikTok of the game, first we should do the weekend. I mean, this is a pretty seismic moment in the title race. We knew, Tim, going into this game that creating a 7-point gap to City, and by the way, I think it's funny watching like Villa fans on socials be like, why is nobody mentioning the gap to us? Because you don't matter. Like, don't worry. The Emery is coming. It's coming for you. But it was so important to put the pressure on. We did put the pressure on. And City, who have been a very poor second-half team this season, when I've watched them again, looked like a first-half team, and they let Chelsea hang around. And I have to say, yeah, my skin crawled punching the air when Chelsea scored a goal. Sure it did. But it was a beautiful, beautiful thing. So this feels like one of those weekends you bookmark, you dog ear, you remember in a title race. And I'm curious how big you think it was and how special a weekend this was for you.
Yeah, definitely, because really it could have gone the other way. I think Bournemouth away is a very, very difficult fixture. They're very good at home, much better than the Premier League table suggests, and Chelsea are a bit of a shambles at the moment. And I wasn't expecting very much from Chelsea, and I watched that first half and I thought, yeah, this is in line with what I was expecting, to be honest. But I just couldn't believe that City didn't put them to the sword, that they were playing with their food a little bit. And but one thing that's quite interesting, actually, I think it was Daniel Storey said something like, I can't believe that like such season title winners played this way. And there were, believe it or not, there were some Man City fans in the comments. I know. That's how seismic it was. Manchester City fans on the internet. But there were quite a few kind of saying, well, actually, if you look at the team, they're not season title winners. It's like Haaland, Silva, definitely Rodri, Donnarumma's obviously won a lot in his career, but they were like, you look around the team, actually it's quite a new City team. They're not it's not Kyle Walker and De Bruyne and Gundogan and whatnot. And actually that kind of played through. I think they did look like a team who hadn't done this course before, which is kind of weird. And we look like a team that's done the course before, and we kind of have, but we haven't won it. So listen, nobody gets anything in January. No prizes are handed out in January. But obviously, if you're going to win the league, you need weekends like this, and you need a few of them, quite frankly, particularly if you're going toe-to-toe with a team like Man City, who lose a defender to injury and are probably just going to go and drop, tens of millions on a really good one and just sort that out in 2 seconds flat. So, yeah, it felt very big. I think also the manner of the Chelsea equaliser coming right at the end like that, it felt like a sucker punch, and it felt like these two results had been in the post for City for me. I think there have been quite a few games where they've gotten away with it.
Yeah, everybody was so quick to tell us that we were too emotional and it was too anxious and it was unsustainable because we're winning games by a goal where we were dominating on XG, while nobody was stopping to say the same thing about a City team that was running a little bit hot, that had been nearly pegged back in a game where they had a 3-goal or 4-goal lead. And it came home to roost, just not for us, for them, in consecutive draws. And it's interesting because their hot streak and our cold streak has coincided with us still being 6 points clear of them. And that's the key. They had a little run. We had a little dip. We're no further. They are no closer than they were. And that's a bad sign for them, because if you look at the away fixtures we have remaining, other than trips to Spurs and City, and I don't know how you want to think about a trip to Spurs because their own fans don't even like them anymore, there's not a lot of scary away trips left. It's a lot of bottom half of the table teams. Now, I will say the bottom half of the table teams could be top half of the table teams 1 week from now because of the compression. Liverpool, thanks to a stunning equalizer at the death, are as close to Leeds as they are to Arsenal. That's how compressed the table is. And I have to say, kudos to Cody Gakpo, who took the crown that Richarlison dropped and placed it upon his head for the meaningless over-celebration, whipping the shirt off, running to the crowd, twirling the shirt around his head, picking up the yellow card, celebrating for 2 minutes, and 45 seconds later, getting pegged back. It was a full Richarlison. 10 out of 10, no notes. And I do think, by the way, that sucker punch, not feeling like they're slightly back in it, they're on a run right before having to come to us winning. The way that psychology of this weekend plays out, I think just gives us an even stronger position. So, Clive, like this is a weekend that I think sets us up really well for what's to come in January, because we do take our eye off the league for a bit. There's the FA Cup, there's the League Cup, Champions League is back. But this game Thursday would have been circled on Mikel's calendar as one to get the boys up for, and he couldn't have asked for a better setup for it in what happened over the weekend.
Yeah, it was a good weekend for all sport results. All of my teams won, basically. And so it was all, and the ones I wanted to lose, they lost or drew. So, yeah.
You obviously did not stay up to watch the heartbreaking Ravens defeat,
you know what?
though.
My son is watching it now as live. He doesn't know.
Oh, no.
And I can hear screams, and it's like, oh,
you should stop him. You should stop him because.
But I watched the Rams. I've seen it. I know what happened. I watched the Rams. They won. And
sorry for spoilers to anybody who was doing what your son was playing.
but yeah, a really good weekend. Actually, really good. A lot of this month is going to be about our away games and what we do. And we all bemoaning Rice not playing at home versus Villa. At home, honestly, my mum could play. We're that good at home. When we go away, I think we have to really think about it. Because teams are treating us as their biggest day out, and they're really bringing their best game. So having Rice for the away game versus the home game was probably a really smart piece of rotation, which the manager doesn't get credit for, shall we say. I think maybe in days gone by, he would have risked him, because the kid obviously wanted to play. He would have risked him, and then we may have missed him for Liverpool and Bournemouth, and that's what we don't want to see happen, right? So I think, Tim and some of your away day mates, they got a big role to play this month, a really big role to play, because I think this is where we have to really focus our minds.
I do want to pat them on the back too, because nothing brought a smile to my face as much as I had my head in my hands. Like Gabriel Magalhaes making a critical error to put us 1-0 down to Bournemouth, and all I could hear coming off the TV screen was Gabby's song from the away fans. And that's what a supporter is. That's why we don't call them fans, we call them supporters. That must feel good if you're Gabby, and plays a role in what he does to get us back in the game. But before we talk about that, Clive, I'll stay with you for a second. We had an interesting summer we went for depth, and there's a lot of players that have been added that on second examination, you might say, well, has this player been quite what we needed or that player quite what we needed? But really what we needed was the ability to trust squad players when quote unquote starters weren't necessarily ready to play a game or fit to play a game. And we're seeing it, by the way, poor Pep Guardiola crying about how he doesn't have a deep enough squad. Now, admittedly, they have a bit of an injury crisis shaping up, and they have a couple away on international duty, so they'll spend another $250 million this window to get Guehi and Semenyo and, 2 or 3 others, I'm sure. But Mikel, before this match, was asked about Bukayo suffering his hamstring injuries. He said, quote, well, there are a lot of factors. Obviously, the amount of games that he's played, minutes, is just incredible. So at that age in Europe in the last 30 years, there are very few that has played that many. So we need to maintain that consistency of protecting him as much as we possibly can in certain areas. He needs to change our protocols. We need to change certain habits as well in training to do that. And then, yes, sometimes you need a bit of luck. Per Sam Blitz on Sky before the game, he said Mikel Arteta is reluctant to use Bukayo Saka 3 times a week. Every time Arsenal had a 3-game week since the start of December, he's had at least 1 game on the bench. Brentford, December 3rd, Bruges, December 10th, Palace, December 23rd, and now today after 2 starts in the last week. So it's great that we can do this. I think it's even better to see the kind of performance we got from Noni. But how did you feel when you saw Bukayo was rested and that we are doing what we should be doing with the summer we had, leaning on the players we brought in to not overplay the ones we need?
Yeah, I mean, it's when the Madueke signing was brought forward, the word backup was really dismissed by people in the club. So they don't want to use that word. They think it's a very good player with real potential, can play left and right. And that was the chat coming out. And of course, we're all thinking, well, he's the enemy from Chelsea and he's the enemy for the England position. Why would he want to bring him in? And actually, it's people like Bukayo that want him to come in because they recognise these high sprint positions, they need to elongate their careers, right? And it's very important that we need to change our minds about the game. I mean, crikey, it's almost impossible to keep up with the game as a supporter going to the games, let alone a player playing the games, I think it's just really attritional on everybody watching it. It feels like there's just a lot of football at the moment. And, we've all had the same way about Bukayo, that basically he's played a lot of football young. We don't want to see his career go a Raheem Sterling direction, although he wouldn't mind the league medals, I'm sure. But I often feel watching Sterling that he maybe lost a couple of years that he could have had because he was played so much when he was young. And that's always been in my mind with Bukayo. So I'm glad to see this come in. I'm not worried about the rotation at all. In fact, I'd like to see us rotate a little bit more because as long as we're fit, we've got people on the bench to make changes. And that's the key thing. Having the ability to change. A game will present itself to you. If you've got to change 3 people at half-time because it's not what you thought it was, then do it. And that's the key thing. You don't lose the substitution windows, but you got to just do it and just think of football as a different thing now. Teams start the first 5 minutes and they have one strategy. Then they change it to catch you out. Then go again. And goalkeepers then sit down because one of the analysts has seen the change. I need to get it to the players. Then they stop the game and it starts again. We started to talk about American football. It's becoming that way, isn't it? It's becoming that way. It really is. It's becoming much more stop-start because the adaptation and changes within game are so hard to track and monitor. And then if you can't get the messages on, and I think football has a challenge, shall we say, to that, to make sure that the game is fluid and people need to be intelligent on the pitch. But for me, I love where this is going. I love the fact we've gone for depth over star quality. I love the fact that we're rotating and we've got 4 competitions in the next 4 weeks. And we're in a good place to attack them all. Whereas this time last year, I'll be saying, Elliot, should we chuck the FA Cup? Should we chuck it? Because I basically knew we weren't strong enough to do the 2 competitions, right? So that's where we were.
Yeah, we find ourselves hand-wringing about, can we get minutes for Eza? Can we get White back into match fitness? There are players we want to get out there playing more minutes. Suddenly we have not just the ability, but the need to get minutes in the legs. And it's kind of like, I'm sorry, Pompey, but you're going to face a hell of a strong team, and the only thing I worry about with the League Cup is watching Chelsea systematically take out City players with bad challenges. That's a team you don't want to play twice, not because I'm scared of them from a competitive standpoint. I'm just scared of them from a physical injury standpoint because they seem hell-bent on injuring people. I do have to laugh, by the way, because we had a video clipped up from one of our podcast episodes where we talked about Caicedo being a player who plays on emotion and over the line, and a Chelsea influencer had quote tweeted basically saying, like, tell me you've never watched Moises Caicedo before without telling me. And 2 days ago, I noticed he just posted, we need to have a conversation about the Moises Caicedo discipline problem. It's like, all right, mate, welcome to the party, pal. It was a very diehard moment. Tim, I don't want to do too much more in the lineup because we have so much to get to in this pod, and so many things in the game. But the only thing I'll ask, were you surprised not to see Eze's inclusion? I mean, he is now 3 games without any minutes. I don't want to make this a big talking point at the top, but it's 3 Premier League games in a row that he hasn't had any minutes. So that's, I'll say I was surprised. Maybe not that he started, but that he didn't come on. But it seems like Mikel is finding it difficult at the moment to know what an Eze situation is,
Yeah, definitely. I think the minute we start chasing a game, at any point, if he's on the bench, he's probably the first on, to be honest. But that's not what the substitution patterns have really called for, because we've been ahead all the time. And the guys playing in his positions, Ødegaard and Trossard, are 2 of our best performers. Trossard over the season, Ødegaard at the moment. So it's kind of tricky. And I think what it shows as well with the depth of squad we've got, I know there's a kind of, I don't want to say narrative, because I don't, that sounds a bit pejorative, that there's a kind of, he's being dragged over the coals for, crimes against out of possession. I think it's, I think it's simpler than that. I think it's just the squad's so deep, you do not have to do very much to lose your place and find it hard to get back in. I don't think the plan was to sit him down for 4 games. I think it's just, I kind of found a reason to sit you down, and now I can't get you back in. But that'll all happen in time. I wasn't surprised, because it was clear what we went for in terms of Martinelli. Bournemouth play a pretty high line. If you watch how they played away at Man City earlier this season, they were up on the halfway line, and actually they got taken apart in doing so. And so you can see the sense in playing Martinelli there as an in-behind kind of player. I think we saw as the game unfolded that there was a reason we picked Madueke as well. I think it was because maybe we considered, what's the Bournemouth left back called again? Is it Truffert? Maybe we thought he was weak in one-on-ones, because it really did seem like a big part of the kind of game plan was to isolate Madueke against him. So I think there was a kind of specific tactical reason we went with Madueke. That specific tactical reason may arise in a game very soon for Eze. His challenge, I said this on the instant reaction, his challenge is to become one of that circle of players who are trusted in all scenarios. And it's not game tactic specific or scenario specific, but it looked to me like this wasn't so much about rotation or rest, although I think it's, who's the guy who reports on Arsenal for Sky Sports News? Sam
Blitz.
Sam Blitz, yes. He'd made the point that every time Arsenal have 3 games in a week,
Saka doesn't. Yep,
sits one of them. Which that's a strategy, isn't it? Because Saka, like, if you think a left back's weak 1-on-1, you don't take Saka out, do you? Really, like, you don't think he can't handle that. It's just, okay, that Madueke will be good in that situation. That's a good time to kind of make that call.
Yeah, and by the way, I have to apologize to you, Clive, because you were trying to help me out with finger gestures that I didn't really understand on my screen to say that it's 4 Premier League games, not 3 that Eze hasn't appeared in. And I kept repeating 3 because I couldn't interpret the finger gestures, but it is 4. And like I said, I don't want to make this a big thing because it's a long season. There's going to be minutes. I mean, he's going to play against Portsmouth and against Chelsea in the League Cup. He'll probably play against Inter and Kairat Almaty. And depending on those performances, like, is Leo Trossard at this stage definitely going to start off the left in every game the rest of the season? Martinelli, I don't think was super convincing in this game. So there's still minutes for him to go win. He's just got to get back in the team and have a couple performances that get him back in the reckoning. And I think that will come. Clive, I don't think there's a huge need to talk about the Gabby error, because I don't know what you say other than he sees, I think it's Timber on the other side of the pitch that he wants to play it to between Bournemouth players. And I think at the last minute, he's like, I don't want to play the square ball across the pitch. And instead he kind of gets stuck in 2 minds and he plays it, and it's terrible. There's not much to say about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if you watch his first game back, I think his full game start, I think against Villa, And Tim will remember this because he booted the ball out in front of him about 3 times in the first half. And we all just brushed it off because we know that he's just rusty. He needs to come back in. And in this game, he's sometimes a bit rusty in his distribution, and then he comes back and he gets into shape, and that's it. And so I accept. I didn't like the run from Timber, to be honest, because when you make a run like that, you've got to think of your next pass. I do not want Timber running on the diagonal back towards number 6 position without a next pass immediately available, because what you are then, you are a trigger. Right. But obviously someone had emptied that space, so the principles of our play is to run in there. And that's what he did, which is the right thing to do. And Gabby thought, you know what, I fancy that one first time. And then healed it to Ivan Nilsson. I'm surprised that Ivan Nilsson didn't just fall over and dive. That's what he does most of the time. But then he managed to find the corner. And so just got to wear it, right? But how did you feel? Honestly, how did you feel when that happened? Did you feel sick to the stomach thinking we weren't going to come back in?
I know, and I know it sounds like lies, but it was so early, and I really felt we'd find a way. I know no one could prove that. No one could prove that I felt that in that moment. I did. Now I will say, to be fair, as the game wore on, I had that feeling. The first half, I came away with the feeling of like, this doesn't feel like a game Arsenal win. It didn't feel like we were exerting enough control. But to be fair to Gabby, I mean, the best way to deal with an error is to come back and make up for it yourself, this time from open play. I do want to say, I watched Cole Palmer yesterday. He's just not a very good player, is he? And if you want a really nice statistic to share with your friends, between last season and this season, Cole Palmer has 5 non-penalty goals, and Gabriel Magalhaes has 6 non-penalty goals. So there's your Ballon d'Or candidate, Cole Palmer, for you. Congratulations on your success. Gabby's equalizer is fantastically well taken, but it comes from Noni Madueke. And Clive, I'll stay with you for a second. The story of the first half for me was my excitement about Madueke and my frustration with our team. Because every single time Madueke got the ball, he got into the box. He has the incredible ability not just to get to the byline every time he wants, but he has the ability to then tightrope the byline. You know what I mean? And kind of like get into the box. And it's got to be so frustrating for defenders because you can't touch him there. You can't do anything. God forbid he goes down. And it just feels like the final ball isn't always right. He did have some good final balls in this game. He obviously, the one he cut onto his left and shot way over that I thought was poor. But what frustrated me is it seemed like Madueke could get past his man every time he wanted. And then, and Declan Rice spoke about this in his post-match comments, inexplicably, we just started playing up the left more and getting trapped up the left-hand side and playing through Martinelli, who wasn't having the same joy. And it was just very frustrating because we had this one real dominant performance on one side, and it felt like we went away from it. So what do you think about that? Nani's sensational individual performance, but the extent to which we maybe didn't keep pushing that button as much as we could have.
Yeah, this is all part of the game, isn't it? They're going to stand in that space. They're not going to let you keep doing it, are they? They're going to fill that space in. Just going back a step, I thought the selection was quite interesting. And the reason why I was encouraged, even after the goal, was I loved the energy by which we started the game. It was really high energy. And what I had read about Bournemouth, they're quite a high energy team. So we need to match them. And we chose to match them. It's not often we play 3 sprinters who are not really ball secure, but really are quite energetic to really keep the energy high and push them back. And if you looked at the way we were clearing the ball early in the game, we were just helping it on, Elliot, helping it around the corner and running after it behind it and just getting up behind it to push them back, to really unsettle them. So what we're really trying to do is trying to match their energy and say, you ain't going to outrun us today. That's not happening. You're not outrunning us. And we're going to come here and we come to fight you. And part of that is Noni. He's very direct. But what he is, he's very direct. He separates and he stands on the touchline and then he says, right, me and you. And he might as well be in a cage football. And he wins that duel 9.5 times out of 10. The problem is when people cut off that angle, what's his next move? You know, and which is where Saka's really, really good.
Yeah.
He either makes a couple of out-to-in runs, he varies where he stands, he sends his fullback out wide, and he's got to develop a layer. Because we can all see the one-on-ones. We're not stupid, right? He beats anybody. He's physically tall, he's got shoulders on him. He looked at that guy and said, mate, you're 5'8", you're dead. You know, and he just literally ran him down the side. Who's not a bad player, Truffaut, by the way. He's not bad. And I've been watching him recently, but he struggled on this game. He met his match, right? So So he's got to develop that layer, because that's what separates. When Saka comes, he turns into a midfield creator. So I think Noni's a runner, like the Martinelli clone type thing. And this is why I still want to see him on the left on occasions, because I think it'd be a really good partnership with the two of them. But yeah, I think sometimes you have to recognise the other team are going to stand where your threat is and stop it going in there. And he's got to find a different way to threaten. But to be honest, what a sensational performance, because he set a tone, didn't he? He set a tone for us. I think it's really important, that threat.
I think it was a weird first half for me. There were things about it I really liked, and aspects of it, Tim, where I just felt we weren't getting control of the game in the way I would have liked, and we weren't necessarily being intelligent about the way we attacked Bournemouth. Now, I will say, only, I think, is it Chelsea have dropped more? I think, only Chelsea had dropped more points from winning positions than Bournemouth. And I'm sure that's a stat that Arteta would have been aware of. So that gives you a little bit of hope as you're going through it. But what do you think of the midfield dynamic? Because I think you could split this game right down the middle and say the story of the second half is a Zubimendi, Odegaard, Rice midfield looking like the best midfield trio in the world. Whereas the story of the first half was maybe them all trying to figure out how they wanted to involve each other and how we were going to build the play. And they definitely figured it out. And in the second half, I think both in terms of our control in keeping Bournemouth from creating threat and the way we created threat was emphatic. But what do you think about that in the first half? The midfield dynamic and if you want, maybe the reluctance to just keep going back to Madueke. And like I said, Rice spoke about that after the game. And I think that was an interesting, weird thing that happened in the first half.
Yeah, definitely. So I think obviously there's a thing about Bournemouth being one of the best pressing teams in the league. And I do say bet. I know they're like 15th, aren't they? And so that might sound, if they had a couple more players, they'd be so much higher in the table. I really think that.
They've also been very, very good at home in restricting the opposition. I mean, they had conceded 6 goals at home in 9 games prior to this.
Yeah, absolutely. And like they lost 3/4 of their defence and their goalkeeper over the summer, who we took. So like, and look at the clubs that those players went to: Liverpool, PSG, Real Madrid, Arsenal. So they're doing a lot of stuff right. Honestly, I think if they played the exact same lineup they played against Chelsea a couple of days ago. So I guess I always had a bit of a confidence that, particularly with the strength of our bench, that we'd be able to wait them out a little bit. And this happened to Bournemouth last season. I think you could say, like, relatively, pound for pound, they were the best team in the Premier League last year. Again, pound for pound, I'm not saying they should have won the league, but
be careful, Tim. Be careful.
relative to the resources they have, the way they played. And what happened to them last year? They ran out of gas because they play a very high tempo and they just don't have the squad to turn players over and make substitutions and rotations and things like that. So I think there's a little bit of that to it. Adrian Clark's piece on the Arsenal website I really recommend, because he talked about, actually, I tweeted at half-time that I felt like basically all of our players had gone over to the left. Like it's like we had Rice and Zubimendi kind of standing over to the left, but then kind of emptying out the midfield. So when those transitions happened, we didn't have one of the best recoverers of transitions in the world in Declan Rice. I think Zubimendi makes 12 ball recoveries in this game, which is a really high amount as well.
It's the most by any Arsenal player this season.
Yeah, and but the fact that he had to make that amount as well, I think, is a lot of credit to Bournemouth and the way they play. And I think they caused us problems. I don't think our midfield were quite standing in the right areas. I think my read on it was that I felt we kind of maybe just pulled Declan Rice away, because he was over next to Arteta a lot. Do you know what I mean? He might as well have been in the dugout for a lot of the first half. I felt like we pulled him a bit more central. In Adrian Clark's piece, he wrote about actually how Rice and Zubimendi became much more of a double pivot. They actually backed off in the second half to give us control, because they'll go and win all those duels, and then you go from there, basically. Whereas I think in the first half, perhaps they weren't standing in the right places to recover some of those loose passes. I think that's kind of what it was. Maybe a bit of Bournemouth tiring as well, but us just going, okay, let's make sure we do that, and then from there we go and play. And I think that's kind of what you saw in the second half. And obviously, Rice being perhaps a little bit more central had some even more tangible benefits in the second half.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with that. Clive, your thoughts on the tactical dynamic there?
I felt there was some pressing issues with us. And that caused the gap. There's always a cause and effect, isn't it? So when you see gaps, what's caused the gap? And so when we're pressing off the front line, what we were doing, we were gambling, what I call not goal side. So Odegaard was gambling off the touch. So if a player's going to touch it backwards, if you go the other side, the attacking side, then you nick it, then you're through on goal, right? You're through to Gyokeres, you got Madueke sprinting, Martinelli sprinting. But if you gamble goal side and they turn back towards our goal, and all of a sudden we've gambled on the press and they're running through. And then you're talking about, they're running through again. And it's been a little bit of a problem for a little while. And I'm conscious of the fact because that same gamble press against Aston Villa, against Jadon Sancho, ends up with the best assist of the season. So there's risk and reward in this, you see? And so we got done a couple of times there, and we got done a couple of times in Villa in the first half. You know, but Declan Rice is always the guy that you got to keep in the middle of the pitch. And, you know, I have a bias towards a double pivot. So for those who know this, you might as well close your ears right now. When those two players, Rice and Zubmeni, can see the game in front of them, I have very few worries, if any, because they're so intelligent to either squeeze up, squeeze out, to wherever. But they've got to be in front of them. And they can choose where they go. They can go either side. It doesn't really matter. Rice has primarily been a left-sided six most of his career, 6'8". And he has been for Arsenal, but he's done a little bit of work on the right-hand side recently. His right-back experience has maybe given him a little bit of fun on the right-hand side. And as soon as we start to be a bit more smarter in the press, and as soon as we start to be a bit more smarter getting the ball into wide areas, it was over for them. Completely over for them. And I think the key is for us as watching fans is to realise that every team will have a moment. It's what happens within that moment. And let's be honest, they had a long shot and a heel pass from our centre-back that gave them their goals. There's one shot from Clive, I think it was curled past the post. I can't remember much else where they caused me any sort of angst. And so it's about seeing off their moments and recognising why it's happening and adjusting. And this is why I think we're really, really good. Really, really good. We're learning lessons really, really smartly. And touch wood, we're taking the drama out of football. We went here a year ago, one dramatic challenge when Evan Nilsson made the most of it. And suddenly, our best centre-back goes off the pitch and misses the next game. And in this game, if you watch Evan Nilsson and Saliba play together, Saliba knew what he was going to do. He kept dropping off him, let him do his diving on the floor. It's about learning. You can only learn by experience. You know, and so I really love the learning and the calmness and composure, even in moments when we don't feel good, and how they recover from the errors and just fix them. And I think it's really a big part of what we do.
Yeah. I also want to just say, it's a side note to this. I'm so glad that we won this game in part so that the decision by Manchester City to leave Semenyo at Bournemouth for a game and then not get the win over Chelsea, like it just played out perfectly. Right now, who knows if City were actually involved in that or if it had anything to do with that. But if it did, absolutely hilarious. Tim, it's getting really, really difficult to discuss Declan Rice because you don't want it to just be a hagiography, right? You want to try to say something analytical or something intelligent. But Mikel was asked if he's the best midfielder in the world. You know, and he sort of said yes while saying we have the best midfielders in the world. I think he wanted to give the group credit. Declan Rice himself gave Odegaard credit. And obviously Odegaard critical in both of the goals he scores. He plays it to Rice for one of them. He slips it through beautifully to Bukayo for the other. But this is a game where we really, really needed him in all phases. And once again, he delivers. I actually think he should score more goals. I do. His technique is so good with the way he strikes the ball. It's so clean. He's really thrived in this 8 role that we give him, whatever you want to call the role, but the box-to-box role. And I think Mikel deserves credit for seeing in him a guy who could, because, you know, if you're a typical manager, you'd look at him and you say, I need that guy in the box on corner kicks. No, his technique's exceptional. I'm going to have him take the corner kicks. This is a guy who should just be sitting in front of the defense screening because he's so good at ball recoveries. No, I'm going to have him everywhere on the pitch because his technique and his quality is such that I don't want him left out of any aspect of how we build play. So I think Mikel gets credit for seeing the well-roundedness and the capacity, the technical capacity in Rice's game. But this is another game that he just absolutely bosses and grows into and does what is needed to make sure that we get over the line. He's having a season where it feels like every time he plays, he does that.
Yeah, definitely. When we signed him, I think I said I felt he was quite misunderstood in the respect that everyone viewed him as a 6. He played at West Ham as an 8 as well, and actually they'd alternate season to season between him and Souček, and when he played as an 8, he'd put up good numbers, like for a team like West Ham, like decent numbers. So I always felt that was in him. And I always felt what I saw in the player in West Ham was that he always added something to his game every year, and that's basically what he's done at Arsenal. And if he can add double figures for goals, for example, all the better, because we don't like it. It's actually quite amusing isn't the word I'm grasping for here, but it's interesting how the left 8 thing was such a discussion for such a long time. And I feel like I haven't even heard the expression left 8 now for such a long time. Like, not least because Kai Havertz hasn't really played there. Marino doesn't really, like, he's made it his own. And we don't, it's funny how, like, we really assign that nomenclature to it, like left 8, like left 8. This is the position that's going to unlock Arteta's team. And we don't talk about it anymore. But we don't talk about, because Declan Rice has nailed it. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that's kind of right as well, because I think it would almost minimize, well, not almost, it would minimize what he does, which is, what's the title of that movie? Everything, Everywhere, All the Time, or something.
Yeah, exactly.
That's kind of what and who he is, and all that kind of ball recovery stuff. We still see that. We just see it 20, 30 yards further up the pitch than maybe we would, which is absolutely fine by me. And the real thing he's got going for him in terms of longevity of career as well is obviously he's in his physical peak at the moment, so he can do this like everything, everywhere, all the time. When he gets a bit older, he won't be able to do that, but he'll be a decent 6 in his 30s, might even go to centre back. He'll be able to do that. He's just like pretty good at everything, and he works on everything, and he really, like, obviously there is a lot of talent in this player, but I guess a bit like someone like David Beckham, it's like this is someone who just works on their game absolutely relentlessly at all aspects of it, wants to be the best all the time. And if and when Arsenal, hoist one or more of the big trophies, the signing of Declan Rice is going to be a massive part of that. As a player, we've said the V word quite a lot in terms of Vieira, but it actually, as a signing, as a piece of transfer business, it reminds me of when we signed Sol Campbell, and it was like, whoa, okay, now we're serious. This is the level raiser of like a big England international who's come to our club, and it feels it feels like a very, very pivotal signing in this quote unquote project.
Yeah, it does. By the way, Mikel agreed with you on talking about Rice and whether he's one of the best in the world. For me, yes. And then he does the Mikel thing, right? For me, the ones that we have are the best, which, he's getting the whole group in there. But he said what you said, Declan is constantly adding things to his game. He's constantly adding things to his role in the team. I don't see where he can stop, because he can still improve in a lot of areas, and he wants to improve. He's such a pivotal player for us. And I love that. Giving him the praise he deserves, but pushing him to continue to do more. Declan Rice got a new chant to the tune of "That's the way I like it," by the way, and I'm happy about that. I haven't loved that his chant just stayed, "We got him half price." I get it, it's fun, but I like one that's just a little bit more about him. And Rice himself said he liked that chant, so nice to have that one. I want to talk about Victor Gyokeres, the left-hand side, some substitutions for the better and the not so better, and of course preview the Liverpool game. So that's still stuff I want to do before I make sure that everybody knows which brands are going to impact their life. Clive, do you want to add on Declan Rice's Ballon d'Or winning campaign?
I think Arteta called him a lighthouse player, didn't he? When he first signed him.
Yep.
And I think I remember many years ago, me and James did a thing with Jamie Carragher and Gary Neville in the club, and a little interview thing, and Carragher said, "You need a Van Dijk and an Alisson type signing." It was pre-Declan Rice days. Of course, I was in full arguing mode. So, no, I don't. No, we don't. But actually, we probably did, and it was Declan Rice, and I think he's turned up at Arsenal, very polite in his first year, a little bit more progressive in his second year. Now he's in his third year, and he's saying, "Right then, time for us to win." Simple as that. It's time for us to win, and I'm now going to stop being polite. I'm going to take over this area of the pitch, and I'm going to deliver for the team in any way I can. And we're seeing the full player now. And I don't think, not just him, there's a number of players in our club that do not want to be defined by second place medals. And he does not want that to happen. And they're prepared to deliver, and they're focused on it. And we've got 5 months to go, halfway through all of our total games. And I wouldn't choose another midfield player in the world at the moment in time to play in that position. And so, 26 years of age, next England captain. What's there not to like?
Yeah, I mean, nothing. Literally nothing. Literally nothing. And I do think, just so we're clear, I'm with Mikel. I don't know if I've felt this for a very, very, very long time. I don't know when it would have been. I'd have to think about it. And I don't like to do that. I think right now, on form, as it looks to me, Zubimendi, Odegaard, and Declan Rice is right there as the best midfield in the world, or one of them. The PSG midfield, of course, is sensational. They're different midfields, but I think this has everything it needs. They are all in good form right now. They are all rounding into shape, and they understand their roles. Clive?
Yeah, I think that is a discussion to have, by the way. So I agree with you. I do. But it does. I think it took a while, as I think Tim alluded to earlier on, for them to find their roles in the game and to coexist together. But the second half, I thought it was the best they've been. Look at their numbers. Look
Incredible.
where they popped up on the pitch. There's a few little things around pressing, I said earlier. But when you see 3 of them producing numbers that they want to produce, and letting the other player go, then you say, you're starting to respect each other now, respect what the other player can do. And what it's going to do is they're going to drive each other to do all of the jobs. You don't choose, you can't do something. You're going to stand in my spot, you better do what I can do, and vice versa. And I think this is the future. They get on that magic roundabout and they move, absolutely fine. But if Odegaard's in the 6, you better play like one. And if Zubimendi's there, you better do what's required. And if you get into 10 and you're arriving in the box, Declan Rice, we better score. And this is where we're heading. And this is great. This is what makes us so hard to read. I think I'm not one for sticking with anything, because as soon as one game comes along and someone has a bad game, we're looking to the bench for that player. Mate, I do it at 0-0 in the first half and start warming up, inviting me. I want to make a change. And so let's not get fixed on it, but at this moment in time, that's the best step in that second half as a 3. But this could change in a moment.
Yeah. I really agree that the second half, all three of them were brilliant. And we had the luxury of taking Rice off from Marino, which
you took off Odegaard.
Odegaard from Marino.
It was the right thing to do as well. I mean, maybe we'll say that for the Gyokeres chat, but it was the right thing to do because we need to control the game.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on Gyokeres that I want to get out so that they can be ridiculed. So I want to make sure we do that. I also want to talk left-hand side quickly, and we still need to do the Liverpool preview. So let's get you up to date with the brands that you need in your life. And look, 2026, everybody talks about resolutions. If you have been thinking about getting your products that you make out there to the world, you can do it, and you can do it with Shopify. Okay? So Shopify is the best platform for creating a world-class e-commerce site. You can sell online and in person, by the way. This is really important. And, I think, look, we all know that you get that motivation at the start of the year to do something new. And if you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to be a founder, you want to start something, this is the time to do it. But if you're not a technical person, if you're not, you don't know how to write code, this really is the platform that I've used to build websites. I cannot recommend it highly enough. You choose the pictures for your products and the descriptions, but it handles so much, including, by the way, selling on other platforms like Instagram and TikTok and Facebook. So you don't have to worry about that. Grow your brand, handle more orders, expand to new markets, do it all in one dashboard that's simple and easy to use. In 2026, stop waiting and start selling with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling at shopify.com/ArsenalVision. Go to shopify.com/ArsenalVision. That's shopify.com/ArsenalVision. Hear your first cha-ching this new year with Shopify by your side. And this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp is therapy, and therapy is part of a healthy lifestyle. And, hopefully you had a wonderful, joyous holiday season. I know for some people the holidays are difficult. I got emails from people, who have lost loved ones, who are going through extremely hard times, and I hope that you're holding up okay, that you're doing well. I know the holidays can be, a chance for reflection. Talk to someone. Talk to someone about the obstacles that are facing you and how to get them out of your way. Sometimes obstacles that seem small that are nagging at you, it's why you're not getting a good night's sleep. That affects your health. Getting it out, talking about it, gets you to the locus of the problem. And, one thing that when I was in therapy, we talked about a lot, shifting from an external locus of control to internal. In other words, instead of having things that are external to you that you can't control dominate your life, how do you get back to things that you are in control of? And therapy helped me do that. And it can do that for you. BetterHelp therapists work according to a strict code of conduct and are fully licensed. In the United States, there are therapists in the UK. Of course, with over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is one of the world's largest online therapy platforms, having served over 5 million people globally. And it works with an average of 4.9 out of 5 for a live session based on over 1.7 million client reviews. BetterHelp makes it easy to get matched online with a qualified therapist. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/vision. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/vision. Do you know, Clive? That's enough of that.
Indeed.
Nailed it. Tim, I don't know that it's a huge talking point, especially with the other things we have to get to, but as the host of the show, I have the right to steer it in that direction, and so I'm just going to. On the left-hand side, I don't know that this was a great Martinelli game. He's been so influential off the bench for us, and he's been great in the Champions League. I'm not sure his starts in the league have been so as high caliber. But I also think it's not just the Martinelli of it. I think it's the Nketiah of it too. And we really should not sleep on how important Ricardo Calafiori has been. And I think that combination there of Martinelli and Nketiah felt a little one note for me, right? I think they're both sprinters, both runners on the wide areas. Maybe you need the guile and the technical level of Leo if you're going to play Nketiah, so Nketiah can sprint past him and Leo cut inside, or you need the interior control of Calafiori and the just all court running that he does to help Martinelli. I don't know. I don't have the tactical mind for that. I'm sure Clive has a thought on it, but it didn't really work for me. And I think we've missed Calafiori. I think he's a big miss. So Nketiah is a great luxury to have in the team. Don't get me wrong. But I thought the left-hand side, if I had to pick an area to be critical of in this game, that was the part that didn't feel like it was really clicking for me.
Yeah, definitely. I think we attacked, the data shows we attacked an equal amount on both sides, more or less, but the chances really came down one side.
Yep.
And that tells you something, and kind of the goals came down one side as well. So I think that tells you a lot. I'm with you. I think the mix perhaps wasn't right. I think Nketiah, and I think we knew this about him anyway, he's more of an overlapper. And if you've got an overlapper, then yeah, you probably need someone who comes in off the flank a little bit more, so that you've got that relationship. Whereas, if you're thinking about the 5 lanes, it kind of felt like we had 2 people in that far left lane at the same time, and it didn't quite go off. I also think, just in terms of the balance of the front 3 anyway, both Martinelli and Gyokeres, perhaps even if you'd had someone like Gabriel Jesus to come and, hold the ball and have that kind of probably greater technical ability to play wall passes and things like that Gyokeres doesn't really have yet, then you might have seen something different. But, you've kind of got 2 left-sided players running in the same lane, and then you've got a striker who kind of runs away from the ball because that's his game. And so I didn't think the mix was quite there. I did think that was relatively foreseeable before the game. Actually, I think a lot of people commented on the fact that it felt like perhaps we were missing one more technician, that it felt like this would make this game a bit shootouty, a bit too transitional, which, to be fair, didn't really happen in the second half. I think Arsenal did get control of it, but yeah, I didn't love that left side, albeit I think Martinelli in the second half did come in a little bit more. He wins the flick on, doesn't he, for Gyokeres for the second goal, and he actually won a couple of flick-ons, and he was almost more like a second striker with Gyokeres, and it was slightly better. But yeah, and look, Hincapié as well. The other thing we have to kind of acknowledge is that you've got to manage Semenyo coming the other way, because Semenyo's their best player, very, very good player, and I think it felt like Arsenal were aware of that and were looking to manage that threat as well.
Clive?
Yeah, I agree with that. Tim took the words out of my mouth. I think it's more a defensive game for him, and that's all right. And he won a lot of his duels, and that's absolutely fine. I think it's important that these players get a start every now and again. He looked razor sharp on his substitute appearances. And when I saw that front three, I really thought we need another baller out there. But then I saw Bournemouth running around at the start, and I can see why he's done that. But this is again, you heard me after Villa away. It was the wrong players for the start of that game. And that was proven by the halftime changes that we made. If you're going to play three sprinters in your front line, then play high energy direct football. And I thought we did that, particularly in the first few minutes. The goal came against, it was unfortunate. So we couldn't really see our plan really come to fruition. But I liked that we played to the players that we had. I wasn't looking for precision. I'm not going to get it with those three. I'm going to get a lot of high energy, a lot of pace, and a lot of threat, a lot of pressing, a lot of pressure. And that's exactly what we need to do for this game, for Bournemouth away, who are really good at home. It's exactly what we need to do. And so the fact that they came off on 67 minutes, was it something like that? Perfect. Part of the plan. Now we get a couple of controllers on the pitch. All three of those players that came on can trap it and keep it and get their heads up and pass and move. And
most
really
days, yes, but we'll come to Gabriel Jesus' game.
Well, that's I'm glad you said that, actually, because that wasn't great. All right, so that's far bigger issue than the Martinelli one, if you ask me. And so yeah, I'm really comfortable with whatever we decide to do, as long as we play to that plan, and that's key. And we're playing to the opposition what they can do to us. And I think it was a defensive game for Martinelli, and I give him a hat tip for what he did on the day.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's talk about Victor Gyokeres then. And this is a tough one because I liked this Victor Gyokeres performance, and I don't think that's going to be a popular opinion. I think what has to happen is you have to start to evaluate a player, update how a player is contributing to your team, and then evaluate them based on that updated understanding rather than what you hope they would be. At this point, I am prepared to say Victor Gyokeres isn't scoring 20 goals for us this season. I am further prepared to say he's probably not an elite striker at the Premier League level. I'm prepared to re-underwrite my evaluation of the player at that level. So now the question is, can Victor Gyokeres be an important contributory part of a successful Arsenal team? And that's where I think I am prepared to say he can do that. And I think he did do that in this game. And I think, it's interesting because for the goal, there's some screenshots going around. For the goal that Rice's first goal, the goal he scores, it's some good hold-up play from Gyokeres. And when Odegaard slides it to Rice, there are 5 defenders around Victor Gyokeres. I realize it's become a bit of a meme, almost being like, he occupies defenders. He does some hard direct running. But you know what? He does. And in recent games, I've noticed, I think we look more threatening and better when he's on than when he's off. I do think there is something to be said about the way this guy runs and runs some more and runs some more. And when balls are bouncing around the box, the defenders are worried about him. He is up for the challenge. And no, he doesn't burst past them the way I hoped he would. He's not getting the space to get his shots off. And so that is why I'm prepared to say I don't think he can be an elite striker at the Premier League level. But I think that running and that physicality drops the center backs deeper. I think it gets us higher up the pitch. I think it helps us keep teams pinned back more and makes their press less effective and our press more effective when the ball turns over. We're getting more high turnovers now, by the way, which are leading to chances. And for the first Rice goal, he's important. So, Clive, you could call it damning with faint praise, But if we're prepared to rethink who this player is and maybe moderate our expectations, I think it's possible that opinion of him may have swung too far in terms of his usefulness. I thought he played an important role in this performance and this win.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Elliot. I think if I'm looking at him, I'm just thinking, mate, just be who you are. Seriously, be that big, running, bullish forward. You know that guy online, Pythagoras in boots? He called him Jim Body or Jim Bunny centre forwards. He sort of compared Gyokeres and Delap. I'd probably get Robbie in there as well, right? The Sunderland forward. Hard running, muscular forwards that smash the ball hard and smash people hard. Be that guy. We don't have that guy in our squad. So be that guy. Where we get frustrated is if he's getting pushed around. But the fact if he keeps going and he's more relentless in his running, and I think he'll be more relentless in his running, I think it's really important. I think it's very important to our direction. And the only period of the game I was worried in was the period when he came off and the gap between Marino coming on. And I think the manager learned, I've got to have one of Marino, Gyokeres, Havertz on this pitch, to make sure that if we want to go around the corner ugly, we can go around the corner to a target. Our goalkeeper can hit a target. We can get up the pitch because people are stepping onto us. In this game, we lost our centre forward when Jesus came on and done one of his, I'm going to jump into the ground and you decide where I'm going to pop up from games. And it's not always where the team needs him. Sometimes it's on the left wing really wide. No, we need to find you. We really need to find you. We're away from home. We're 3-2. We need to bounce the ball off you. I don't care if you come to the tip of the diamond really low. I don't really care, but we need your ability on the ball to have touches. And so, Gyokeres for me, I thought he'd have a few more YouTube goals in my mind, but I never had him as our main centre forward anyway. I just want to see him be who he is, be really strong, hard running, and affect the opposition. He's doing that. And I think he can do it better. And that's step one. I don't know if you caught the interview with Declan Rice on the Arsenal.com channel afterwards, and he spoke about Gyokeres. And I've not really heard a player talk about him like this. And
you want me to give you the quotes?
Yeah, go ahead, mate.
He said, it's tough for him because he's got two defenders on him all game, all over him. So he has to use his strength. He has to do all he can to help the team. And with that goal, without making that run from Gabby's flick and holding it, setting it off to Martin, that goal wouldn't happen. That was a pivotal moment in the game for us to turn the game on its head. I see how hard he hits a ball. And when that space arrives for him, the ball's arriving at his feet to score goals. He will 100% score. But at the minute, defenders in the Premier League want to be able to stop Victor Gyokeres because he's one of the best strikers in the world. Trust me, he's doing unbelievably for us. We wouldn't be where we are without him.
Yeah, well said by him. A player taking responsibility. That's what a great leader is, isn't it? He took responsibility. If you look at our 3 goals in this game, 2 of them we've seen many times before. A ball bouncing in the box, we smash it in, and the Odegaard to Bukayo Saka, who pretends he's sleeping and sprints off the mark and cut back goal. We've seen that before. That first goal, the one with the first Rice goal, basically that doesn't happen in 2025. It only happens this year because we didn't have the ability to do that last year. And so that's a goal for the modern Arsenal with Martinelli right in off the side next to the centre forward. Us going down the centre of the gut like an arrow down the middle and then getting it into areas where we can do things from. I think that's a goal. This team against unsettled defences and prepared to give the ball away to get it back. I think that's a very new Arsenal goal. And he's part of that. And I think we need it all, don't we? We need it all. We can't just have the Saka, Rice, Odegaard triumvirate. That will eventually be stopped. But if we got a player in there that's causing problems and keeping people away, I think Jesus collapsed the box on one of the goals as well. It's very important that we look at it as a group, and that's what we are doing.
There's 5 defenders around him for the first Rice goal. For the Gabby goal, where's he standing? On the goal line. And I mean, whether you think his movement is elite or not, I mean, there's so many things we can pick apart and say it's not as good as we hoped. But I do think in the Premier League, if you don't collapse defenders, if everybody wants to run to the penalty spot, if everybody wants to stand at the D, you can't create the space for shots. You can't create the openings for cutbacks. There was a game a couple games ago, I'm going to get wrong which one it is. I don't remember. But everybody was mad at Saka because he didn't slide it across to Gyokeres. Mad at Timber for not sliding it across to Gyokeres. He gave it back to Saka, and Saka has a shot that by his standards he should score. It's an empty net. He slides it with his right instead of just taking the extra touch to his left and roofing it. But the reason Saka's in acres of space is Gyokeres has run hard to the back post and brought defenders with him. So, like I said, there are going to be some people hearing this and saying, my God, you've really lowered the bar. I want to be clear. I have lowered the bar. Yes, I think I've had to rethink what he can really give us. But that doesn't mean he can't give us important things that make us better. And for me, Tim, he is doing that. And there will be some goals along the way. I have no doubt. There won't be as many as maybe I hoped. But I don't think you can rule out the contributions he's making just because you're not getting the goal involvements you were hoping for.
Yeah, I think there's a few things here. I think I was trying to think of like some comparisons, and the first place my mind went was actually Stefan Guivarc'h up front for France in the '98 World Cup, who was maybe like a bit of a battering ram, and then a young Thierry Henry, Yuri Yokayev, Zinedine Zidane all did the business behind him type thing. Almost like, I guess, like a blocker, really. And then I started thinking of Giroud in the French national team as well, 20 years later, doing much the same thing so that Griezmann and Mbappe and Kingsley Coman and players like that behind him could do their thing. So I think you're right in terms of, I mean, you described it as, I guess, kind of underwriting your expectations a bit. I think I always, well, I say always, but kind of long had some doubts. But ultimately, the bottom line is this guy's going to have to play a lot because he's the only one who's fit enough to start games and do what he does for 65, 70 minutes. Gabriel Jesus cannot do that yet. Kai Havertz, hopefully coming back soon. He might not be able to do that this season. He's going to have been out for nearly a year. We've got to be realistic about what he's capable of. So these are two other strikers who we might only really be able to use in cameo. So like this guy is fit enough to start. He seems at least happy enough to take a lot of physical punishment, and he takes a lot of physical punishment, and referees allow a lot of physical punishment on him. I imagine, I don't know, he played in the Championship, to be fair. I was going to say, I imagine before he came here, he kind of thought, I thought tackles round the neck weren't legal, but it seems like they are. But again, he played in the Championship, so I'm sure he's used to that enough. And the way he fights for that kind of Rice goal as well, where he's being fouled, but he knows he's not going to get the foul if he goes down, so he just keeps barreling through. And look, I completely understand the squinting to see it, and all of that. But like, if he can be a barrel for us, that's still actually a very useful job. I think also the other thing that's clear is he seems so far to be a lot more. I say a lot more useful. He's more useful in away games than home games so far. Home games, I don't see him. Away games where, the referee lets the crowd referee the game and centre-backs can get away with a bit more and all of that. He absorbs a lot of punishment, basically, is one of the things he does. And I kind of think that maybe he's, when I say accepted that role, that he's kind of getting used to that role, being a bit of a sponge to absorb some physical punishment, take some defenders away, be a bit of a decoy. Yeah, ideally, you probably don't want to pay £65 million for a 27-year-old to do that. But ultimately, Arsenal are trying to win the league, and the kind of alternative was to pay more for Sesko, and I'm not sure we'd get a lot more. Play or just completely submit to Merino being a centre forward, because the bottom line is this season, at the beginning of this season, the first half of this season, Jesus and Havertz were not going to be able to do this. So, yeah.
And that's interesting because it does come down to profiles. If Mikel and Berta agreed, we need someone who threatens back lines with hard running, who collapse defenders, who has real 9 instincts. That wasn't Ekitike, okay? That wasn't Ekitike. That was Gyokeres, and that was Sesko. Those were the guys out there that do that. Even Ollie Watkins, like, who I like, and I think you still could make the argument that there was a real reason to do that. if this was the profile we wanted, it was Sesko and Gyokeres. And I've watched a decent amount of Sesko when he's played. He does not look ready for the level at all. He looks very lost. And I'm not saying Gyokeres has been an amazing performer, but I think in terms of understanding his role and where to be, he's looked like he understands the assignment. And, you know, it is one of those situations where I'm not sure there was a striker we could go get in the summer. I mean, everybody said, well, Isak's the obvious sure thing. Well, how'd that work out? So I don't know that there was a sure thing, but I think this guy in this role is doing some things that are helping us. And if you want to say that's damning with faint praise, I hear you. But for me, Clive, it is an Arsenal team that is 6 points clear at the top and top of the Champions League. And you know what ability he has? Availability. Because before you tell me how good Jesus is or Kai is, Gabriel Jesus has missed the better part of 2 seasons. Kai Havertz hasn't played in a year. And he's got a little bit of a knock now again, so he was out of the squad. The fact that this guy has appeared in 18 of our 20 Premier League games, started 15 of them, and we're where we are after 20 games, you can't completely write off his role in that being the case, you know?
Yeah, I'm not sure how many of the Champions League games he started, but a fair few of those, although he missed a couple with injury. I think he's critical to what we're trying to do, and he's critical to the change by how I watch this team attack. It makes us look different and more exciting. And whether he's always the most exciting, that's up for debate. But I think it's important that I think we're learning how to use him. And Sesko, for example, when he was playing at RB Leipzig towards the end, he was playing in the front two. He's had better moments at Manchester United when he has somebody next to him. I think Gyokeres' best moments have come when someone's been next to him. His best moment in this game came when Martinelli was next to him. His best parts of the season came when Eze was right next to him. And I think we just have to find a way to assimilate players from outside the league. In the old school Arsenal, we have our wingers on the chalk and we have our centre forward dropping into a false 9 position, creating an inside diamond potentially. And then we want to be in the box and be a centre forward. We got one player that can do that, but he hasn't played for a year. You know, and he can do everything in Kai Havertz, right? But he hasn't played for a year and he can't finish chances. Jesus has not been fit. So we got somebody else in. And I think he's different enough for us to have the right squad. And that's important. He's different enough and he's available enough. So, hey, look, I'm right behind him. I'm not dumb. I can see that his feet look heavy on occasions, but the manager takes him off. And it's great, isn't it? He takes him off because he knows he's going to need him for the next game. And so that's important. We don't thrash him like we were doing before because we had literally nobody. You know, so he takes him off and he plays his role and we get someone else on. And back to my Cole York, Solskjaer, Sheringham scenario. You got to beat us twice. And that's where we are right now. Now it's us. And I think it's great.
Yep. And then, you know, it can't be fun if you're Bournemouth, for example, and you're like, oh, they're taking off their front 3. And bringing on Leo, Saka, and Jesus. I mean, it's just an incredible embarrassment of riches in some ways. And of course, those 3 come on, and we get the goal that should have made it safe. The Odegaard pass to Saka is sensational. Saka's burst is great. He has really intelligent hesitation. His pass back to Rice is the perfect weight, so Rice can stride onto it and hit it cleanly. The keeper had to come. I mean, it's just perfect. And it was a little bit redolent of the days when it was White, Odegaard, and Saka on the right, and those triangles were working. It's just that understanding. And if Odegaard and Saka start to develop that understanding again, goals are surely going to follow. It wasn't the best cameo for Jesus, as I mentioned. I don't think it warrants a discussion. He gave the ball with. I mean, the funny thing is, I may be over-indexing in my mind the 2 times he had the chance to keep the ball in the corner and just gave it away cheaply, and so that may be frustrating me more than the overall performance.
He was on one of them, though, wasn't he?
Yeah, well, he had his leg literally pulled, and I guess no foul. It was a very weird refereeing performance across the board, which is the case with this guy because he's just not very good. I do think their goal is worth a quick question, Tim. I have to admit, in real time, when I see it hit the middle of the back of the net, I thought maybe Raya, I'd like you to do better on that.
You mean in terms of
most? Yeah. I mean, most of the time, I'd like a keeper to do better when that's where the ball lands. Most people have said they don't agree with that, and most people are probably right. What I do know is Krupi should not be standing in that position unmarked by anybody. It's a miss. It is way, way, way too easy for him to turn and have the entire goal to line up and the time to take the shot. So do you have any quick diagnosis on that goal? Because if you don't want to blame the keeper, which I think I've come around to, I think you can blame the team because, okay, 9 times out of 10, that shot doesn't go in from there. But Premier League players, it turns out, are pretty talented. And if you give them completely unmarked, unpressurized shots from that range, that's what they can do, and he did it. By the way, Liverpool learned the hard way about that. But yeah, I mean, this is a good strike from a player who's just unmarked.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, Arne Slot's comments about that Harrison Reed goal, the complete sidebar, very interesting. He said because they were setting up for a set piece, and that's why there was no pressure on the ball. It's actually a very interesting sidebar. But on this, I think the truth is the standards just dropped, didn't they, for a couple of seconds? I think if we're 1 goal clear, that goal doesn't happen. We're 2 goals clear. I think everyone's a little bit, demob happy, should we say. Zubamendi's a little bit too deep, not really on it in the way that he usually would be. Ødegaard, season run off the shoulder. Again, if that was a 1 goal lead, I don't think that would happen. And it's probably, in hindsight, now we've got through and won the game and actually managed the game after that brilliantly. It's probably just another thing for me. It's just another little kind of thread for Arteta to tug on and say, no, like, don't do that. Don't do that at 2 goals down. Look at the stress you created by doing that. Keep your standards high. And sometimes that's probably useful for a manager at a safe distance. It is a really good hit. My completely baseless prediction is that Krupi will be someone who will go for a lot of money in a year or 2. He's come from not Strasbourg, Lorient, who basically, what they're doing is really interesting. They're kind of gaming the market by producing wingers, and they're focusing on producing wingers because they know they're the most expensive players. It's really, really interesting, and he's another one from Lorient. And my completely baseless prediction is that he'll go to a Big 6 club for like tens of millions of pounds in 18 months or so.
We know he wasn't from Strasbourg because he'd be at Chelsea. So I think we can just about wrap it up on this game, except to say I was a huge fan of when the final whistle blew. It's fair to say the Bournemouth players were not. They kind of lost their rag a bit. I mean, look, it is the case that we've been victims of teams getting equalizers well past when the whistle should blow. I don't know that there is a rule that says if a team is still attacking, they just get more time, even if there's no more time. And I don't know where the 6 minutes came from to begin with. I will say if the shoe was on the other foot, I'd be annoyed that they didn't let us serve in one more ball, but rules are rules. Clive, do you have any issue with this? I mean, for me, it's just like, obviously no issue. We're glad they did it, but did you find it weird that he blew up when he did?
I find Chris Kavanagh weird, to be honest.
He's terrible.
I've not got over Declan Rice by the corner flag yet, mate. And so this referee looked
By the way, he did it to Zubamendi again when Zubamendi, he did a thing you always see players do. It went out for a throw. He kind of kicks it off the advertising hoarding and it rolls, and it's multi-ball. So they're taking the other ball anyway. It rolls onto the pitch. He gave Zubi a yellow for that. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I sent a tweet out last week saying our referees, I think, are getting a bit smarter, not by ruining games. Trossard
I agree. I totally agree with that. Mm-hmm.
And I left it out there, and everyone slaughtered me, saying, "Clive, be careful what you're saying. You're going to upset everybody." And then the game comes at the weekend, and the camera keeps flashing on Chris Kavanagh's face. I'm thinking, where is that tweet? I need to delete it quick because he looked poised for action. Do you know what I mean? Really, he just looked like he wanted to do something, mate. And
you can see why he tried it on at the end, can't you?
Oh yeah, Tim. There is a time last season, mate. That's a penalty, and I've got to look at Dermot Gallagher.
Everyone telling us, actually, yes, that's definitely a penalty.
It's a penalty. The referee had no choice, and then Dermot Gallagher gives me the coup de grace on Monday morning. That's what last year was like. This year could be.
Let's be fair. If you're a defender in your own box, you cannot have elbows because they could hit someone's head if they headbutt your elbow. So that should have been a penalty.
This year, we don't seem to be on the end of that. Thank goodness. People are actually treating a football match as it should be treated, as something that's precious. And we should try to keep people on the pitch for things that are just minor. You know? And so, in this case, with the with the second phase free kick, I mean, probably people are too young for this, but there was a referee called Clive Thomas many years ago that blew a World Cup game out as a corner was actually in the 6-yard box. And he blew it up. And that
how thick was that brown envelope he got the night before?
That caused a national incident. It wasn't that bad, but you don't often see it. But to be honest, I don't care. Just get the points, clap the fans, and get yourself a kebab on the way home.
Yeah. It is what it is. I would say this about referees. I have always been of the opinion that a referee who is reluctant to make a giant call is preferable to me, especially in a VAR era. Because if there's a giant call that should have been made, VAR will get your back. The problem is once you make a giant call, you're less likely to have it reversed. And so if you think it could be yellow or could be red, it's okay to show the yellow. If you think it's probably not a penalty, it's okay not to give a penalty. What kills a game is giving an 85% chance of a goal on something that's 50-50, or sending a man off the pitch for something that's 50-50. Because at that point, you've distorted the game and they're not going to re-referee it. So I'm always more okay with the call that's not made than the call that is. And it feels like the refs are making fewer calls this season that don't need to be made. All in all, overall, I am okay with that. I prefer this way of refereeing a game because it ultimately lets the players decide the game more than the referees. They don't have to be the look at me moment. There was an NFL situation this weekend where a player got disqualified from a game for accidentally slightly bumping the shoulder of a referee. And it's one of those, like, he didn't have to be kicked out of the game, but the referee wanted to impose his authority. And so it's like, why do we need that? We don't need that. All right, we got time and we should do it. It's Liverpool up next. This is a right wrongs moment for us. Liverpool come in not in their best moment. It turns out Mohamed Salah wasn't the problem at Liverpool, which is a real shock to discover, but he will not be available. They may not have Hugo Ekitike, who has a minor hamstring issue. Now we'll see if Slot was fibbing about that, because frankly, if you have a minor hamstring issue, you don't get better in 4 days. So he was either just fully rested for the Fulham game, or he has a hamstring issue and he'll miss it. Cody Gakpo obviously went full Richarlison. They got gut punched. They're not where they want to be. They still carry threat, but the idea of Gyokeres going up against Bukayo Saka gives me, I think they call it endorphins. Tim, I don't know what to say other than this is our home. We were sucker punched by them at Anfield. Mm-hmm. They are not the team now they were then. We were very conservative in our approach there, as were they. And so we got a very low incident game. I think this is a chance to right some wrongs, and I'm curious how you think we approach it.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be a really difficult game. You're right, Liverpool aren't the team they were last season, perhaps. But, last season, they didn't beat us last season, did they? No, both games finished 2-2. And I feel like we owe them one for the home game last season, definitely. We really should have seen that out and won it. And in fact...
Well, we finished with a really weird backline. I mean, we had them. And then all the defenders came off.
2-1, we got done trying to beat them 3-1. And look, that might have informed our approach as well to certain scenarios this season. But yeah, definitely. And look, we will, again, in terms of like the build-up, the narrative and all of that, we will get like these where people just can't wait and see what happens. They have to have massive, final, enormous conclusions about the league season based on the most recent result. We will be crowned champions in waiting again. And so everyone will say, they should beat this lot 5-0, Liverpool rubbish, Arsenal are going to win the league and all of that. And if it's a draw or anything like that, again, we'll go back to Arsenal are bottling it and all of this and blah, blah, blah. But in terms of the approach, I mean, Liverpool have been giving up chances. I think there's definitely scope for us there. The thing is, Liverpool have kind of struggled with low blocks, and that's obviously not really what we're going to do. And I think that's one of the things we underestimate coming into these games as well, is that we play like a shall we say, wounded rival. And you look at the type of games they're struggling in, and it's not the game that you're going to give them. So I still think it's going to be a really, really difficult game. We absolutely owe them one. I think that we've made some decisions in recent games, like maybe not playing Rice against Villa, sitting Saka down for Bournemouth, we've made some decisions. They made a decision as well. Ekitike didn't play at Fulham, and because he had, I'd never heard this before. DOMS, is it delayed onset muscle soreness or something? Which I am told is a thing.
It is, yeah.
You can see I don't lift weights very much, so I've not come across that one very much. But they've made some decisions really as well about this game, so they're going to be up for it as well, because they haven't, like Liverpool know they can't win the league, but they can come and chin the team they probably think are going to win the league and lay down a little bit of a marker. I think this is going to be a really difficult game. I really do. I think it's going to be tight. I think it's going to be tense. I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on us because people are just going to say we're going to go and win it easily, and I don't think we will. But I think Mikel will know that. And I haven't watched. I watched them against Fulham. I haven't watched enough of Liverpool's most recent games to really know at this stage, like where their weak spots are, what's really going wrong. That is reading I'm going to do in the next couple of days, though.
Clive, what about you? Do you think it'll be Kirkes or Robertson? I kind of wonder if they'll not start Florian Wirtz. I just don't think he's a player who can play in a game like this. I don't think he has the physicality for it. But what do you think they'll do?
Yeah, I think like everybody else, they try a few things out against other teams, but against us, I think we're going to see Robertson play. I think we can see Joe Gomez play at right back, and they're going to have their strongest, most physical back line. They've got a decent set-piece record from an attacking point of view. They have the outswinger to Van Dijk, basically. How could we create a little oasis for Van Dijk to head the ball in? So that's a worry. McAllister's had a bit of a tough year. Curtis Jones is really pushing him inside there. Will they get Slobosai in the 10? And how they'll play? Will they play Frimpong out wide? Gakpo as a centre forward is not the worst thing in the world, by the way, if Ekitike can't be there. Gakpo off the left if Ekitike is there. They're good players, right? But what I've watched when I've seen them is the intensity level is not there as it was, particularly when we had the ball in phase one of build-up. I watched them, and they're comfortable when they've got the ball and they're pushing teams back. But they do the whole horseshoe thing that we used to do, but they haven't really got Martin Odegaard to dink one over or to flick one in between the spaces. Wirtz is tidy in that scenario, and he's quite sharp, pop and move. But I'm not sure if it's quite enough, So, yeah, I think we can outwork them, out-intense them. We got a day extra's rest. They're coming away to us again. I think this is a chance, but I think Tim's right. I think if you watch them a couple of times over the Christmas holidays, you think we're going to smash them. But it doesn't work like that. Honestly, it doesn't work like that. I think it's going to be a really hard game. I think we'll edge it. And I think if we do, the belief will go to another level, as it did when Enzo scored in the last minute. It went up a notch then. Do you see what I mean? And if we win this game, it'll go up a notch again. And so I think it's an important day for us, but I do think our home form is really, really good, touch wood. It's really, really good. The Emirates will be hot. There'll be a lot of dry Januaries being broken already, week one. It'll be hot. And I think it needs to be hot. Because I think it's going to be a really tough one. But I think we're more than the match for them, and if we execute, we will be fine.
Any surprises from us, Clive, or will we go with what I think is now the established first choice 11? Leo, Victor, and Saka up front, the midfield three, the back four with Nkapie since Calafiori won't be fit.
Yeah, I think so. That makes perfect sense. And again, it's about how you use the bench. And then once you get past this game, we go into a set of games where the squad's going to be used. And I think planning is important. And it's something that I spoke about before, but I spoke about it from a negative basis. I think when you have this amount of players fit, what you have to do as a manager is really make change easy. And so it's all about your pairings and your groups and your units within units. You don't just make a change. Against Aston Villa, we played form players in the wrong parts of the pitch. We played Marino, who was on top form. We played Eze, who was in decent form, and played him in the wrong part of the pitch. So we sort of picked players, not for the game plan. In the last game, I thought we did it really, really well. And I think going forward, if we can make sure we look at the units within the units and say, okay, this player's better paired this player, this is our better double pivot. I think it's important we do that. So that framework for change is really key. So we don't spend time adjusting to how we play. We don't see middle of pitches vacated, because we want to make sure that not just 4-5. We're talking about 10 new players getting on the pitch, and we want them all to succeed. So how do I position them to succeed with a partner or a three, and with an area and a role which suits them? I think this is the challenge for the manager now, because we've got huge games coming up in different competitions, different qualities, different levels. We don't want to waste time adjusting, And in the Palace game, was it the Palace game we made in the League Cup? We made 8 changes in that game, and it was smooth, wasn't it? Look how smooth it was and how good we played. I think that's a real worry for the rest of the league. So if we do that again, I think we'll be fine.
Yeah, it's interesting because one thing we know they have, by the way, is a supreme talent in Dominic Szoboszlai. Obviously, the reason we didn't get points at Anfield. I look at the Junior Krupi goal. What you can't do, McAllister's not playing that well this season. Szoboszlai is. You can't let either of those guys have that kind of room at the top of the box. I mean, that is one thing that will cost us. I don't know that their wide players are in the kind of form right now that is particularly scary. From a center forward standpoint, I assume it'll be Gakpo if Ekitike is not fit. Again, I think our back four can handle those players. You cannot afford to let McAllister and Szoboszlai shoot from 20 yards out, 22, 23 yards out unmarked. So that will have to be something we tighten up on. They've really, really struggled with just long, straight balls up the pitch into the wide areas. And so it's a game for runners. I think obviously Konate has been very, very poor this season. I don't think they'll go with Gyokeres. I assume it'll be Robertson, but maybe they will go Gyokeres. And if that's the case, I just think that's a disaster for them. And on that side, especially if they try to play Wirtz off the left, which they've done, if it's Wirtz and Gyokeres up that side versus Timber and Saka, that feels like a massive, massive mismatch. So they have some really difficult decisions to make. The way I look at it is you obviously have to be careful about this team. I mean, as bad as it feels like they've been, and it feels like they've been very bad, you look at it and they're sitting there in fourth.
They're unbeaten in 6 or 7, aren't they? Something like that.
Yeah.
I think they're unbeaten since they dropped Salah.
Yeah. To be fair, though, a draw to Fulham, a draw to Leeds. Yeah. They snuck past Wolves, snuck past Spurs.
It's not a good unbeaten
beat
run,
Brighton,
but it's an unbeaten run.
Drew to Leeds again, drew to Sunderland. I mean, they're not exactly pulling up trees. The interesting thing, though, is just this is a team that I think everybody expected goals would not be an issue for them. And right now, especially without Ekitike, they don't have a ton of goals in the team. My instinct is that we could do something really special here. The Emirates has been a fortress for us. The key for me is very simple. No gifts. No gifts. No bad mistakes. No Raya passes it straight to Gakpo. No Gabby mistakes. Nothing that gifts them something, because I do think that we have shown we are a team that plays very, very well with the first goal, but that goal is quite important. Now, I know we came back against Bournemouth this weekend, but it is also nice that we go Saturday, Thursday. So if he wants to go, back with any players, I don't think he has any kind of fatigue issues. We have one more day of rest than they do. We're coming off an uplifting win. They're coming off a gut punch draw. So it all sets up well. Tim, any sort of final thoughts on an expectation that maybe we haven't covered?
Yeah, no, I think like the home crowd is obviously going to be really important. And yeah, like you said, no mistakes. But kind of when I say take it to them, I don't mean like gung-ho attack, but impose ourselves. That's what I really want to see. I really want to, I really considered for quite a while these Liverpool games as a bit of a benchmark. Like a couple of seasons ago, it was just before Christmas, we went to Anfield and we got a 1-1 draw, and I was thinking, yeah, this is like we're coming here. This is the team I kind of set ourselves against, because they're the ones that have challenged City and have done it on a similar budget in a similar way, and etc. etc. Now I want to see we've gone past them. That's what I really want to see. I want to see us say, it's not you. Well, maybe it'll be us too next year or whatever if you sort yourselves out. But we've kind of taken your place there, and we're at home. And it's not going to be like Anfield in August where, we dance around each other for 12 rounds and wait and we'll see who wins on points and all of that. If that game had come a month later, I don't think we'd do that either. I just think the two teams didn't know enough about one another at that point, but we know that now, and we're at home. And I just really liked it. It's not going to be easy, and there will be swings in momentum and stuff like that. I think Gakpo is such a dangerous player for them. Yeah. I watched their Fulham game. He was the one that was clearly going to do something, I think. And
him and Szoboszlai. I mean, if you keep them quiet, I think you're in good shape.
Szoboszlai, they keep moving him around, and it's because they kind of need 4 of him, really, in terms of like a glue that holds this team together. So it's not going to be easy. I'm not saying like we must go out and dominate every second of the game and win 5-0, but I want to see us impose ourselves and, you know, kind of say we're top, we're here to take this.
Clive?
Yeah, Tim's got me fired up now, right? So I think it's someone sent me a team talk of Pep today after when I think City got knocked out by Southampton in the League Cup a couple of years ago in their treble season, and he spoke about players' hunger and he spoke about consistency. And I think when I heard that interview, I thought, we got to retain our hunger and we've got to retain it. And if you'll think about his Liverpool game, just remember walking around the pitch after the Everton game a couple of years ago when we lost the league by 2 points. Remember how that felt, and say to yourself, we don't even walk around the pitch this year. Clapping the fans politely, say sorry, we'll come back next year. So don't play with full bellies. Play with hungry. If we play hungry, this team hasn't got a chance. We have to be hungry than they've got their medals. Van Dijk's got the full set, mate, including the European Cup. We haven't got ours. So we can't let them stroll into our manor and say, we want it more than you. That's step one. We've got to maintain that hunger for the whole season. And fans as well, all of us, pretend we're absolutely starving and then go and take them. That hunger was there to start the season. Make no mistake, I felt we got a little bit version 1.0 for a period around Wolves and Villa. And now that verticality is back and that hunger's back. That ability to want to fix mistakes is back. And our stability is back. If we bring all of that to the show, they don't stand a chance.
And, you know, I know you mentioned this already, but it is FA Cup at the weekend, and then it's League Cup midweek. So we can really empty the tank here, right? There's no need to think about, you know, who's going to be borderline for the weekend or anything like that. You can really empty the tank and do whatever you need to do to get the result we need. I think we can get it. I think we're stronger in all phases. You just play with excitement to prove that versus any anxiety, you know, around what they can do. And there's going to be a fan display before the game. The temperature should be hot in the Emirates, which has been a place that we've not lost this season. The results have been good. So we just need to keep it going and right some wrongs. But it could feel like a very big symbolic moment, if not a big moment in the table as well. If we can get this result, I think we can. So we'll leave it there. Main pod won't be till Friday because we're playing Thursday. It'd be silly to do the main pod on Thursday. So we will do the main pod on Friday, which means we'll have some patron stuff for you the next couple of days. We're going to have an interview with Rob Holding that's already recorded and in the can. So you'll be hearing a Rob Holding interview. We've got a new interview series for patrons coming out. Basically, it's a series we're going to do with some fun interviews. We've got some really, really good interviews lined up. Rob Holding sat down and gave an interview. So I think you'll like that. That's coming for patrons, as well as some other fun stuff. So if you want to go, Rice50 is the code. You can get over there for a couple of quid. You can check it out and see what you think. You obviously have the instant reaction on Thursday as well. And you can listen to the Schadenfreude pod we did yesterday that Clive was kind enough to join. So big week ahead. Big year ahead for us. 2026, it does feel like a good year to win the quad, I think. So that's what we now just got to go and do.
That's
Clive?
why I joined the pod yesterday, Tim, for that sort of chat. Thank you very much.
Clive, quad you very much. Tim, quad you.
My pleasure as always.
My name is Elliot Smith. We quad you, and we will quad you after. After Arsenal 10.